Welcome to the debate. So if you walk through the streets of Turin, you're immediately hit by this really fascinating paradox.
Yeah, it's basically two completely different worlds trapped in one city.
Right. Because on one hand, this Italian city produced Europe's most ruthlessly efficient corporate sports machine. And then right next door, its most tragically romanticized working class symbol.
Which is the absolute core of the Derby della Mole. I mean, it's not just a football rivalry, it's a fundamental clash of philosophies, really, about what a football club should actually be.
Exactly. So our central question today is this. Does a football club's ultimate identity stem from, like, its ability to achieve global corporate dominance, or from maintaining a deep, local working class resilience? I'll be arguing that the Juventus model, driven by corporate backing and global expansion, proves that institutional evolution is the necessary engine for sustained excellence.
Well, I'll take the side of Torino, because their ethos, I think, proves that a club's true soul relies on profound local belonging and resistance, not just, financial engineering.
Well, let's look at the mechanics of that Juventus model, though, because it's really easy to say, oh, they just had deep pockets from the Agnelli family and Fiat.
I mean, they absolutely did have deep pockets.
They did, but it was really about how they used that connection. Fiat didn't just write checks. They provided an actual industrial infrastructure. Early on, they could lure top domestic talent by offering lucrative factory jobs to players' relatives.
Right, total corporate integration.
Exactly. And over time, they integrated sophisticated corporate management practices into their scouting, into their youth development. They built a systemic pipeline designed to scale globally.
Okay, yeah, you're right that it scaled perfectly, but look at what that scaling does to the actual football.
You mean the fact that it wins trophies?
Well, sure, but Juventus became a calculated, strictly results-oriented tactical machine. Torino, on the other hand, represents the people actually working on those Fiat assembly lines.
So the social structure of the city playing out on the pitch.
Exactly. You see it directly in how they play. Torino's historical on-pitch style is intensely physical, gritty, high-pressing. It's not some boardroom strategy. It's a reflection of a working-class struggle where literally nothing is guaranteed.
I mean, I agree the Torino style is deeply emotional. But emotion doesn't guarantee longevity. If we look at the ultimate test of institutional resilience, right? The fallout from the Supergar tragedy in 1949.
A massive turning point for the city.
Right, and it exposes the structural flaw in relying purely on local passion. When Torino lost the Grande Torino squad in that plane crash, the real difference going forward wasn't just the tragic absence of those generational players.
You're going to say it was the administration.
It was the institutional vacuum left behind. Juventus dominated subsequent decades because their corporate framework could absorb shocks. Torino simply lacked the administrative safety net to rebuild.
Okay, but calling it a lack of administrative safety net completely misses the cultural reality of what Superga did to the club.
How so?
Yes, Juventus had the corporate infrastructure to keep winning. I won't deny that it's an incredibly effective way to run a sports business. But for Torino, Superga transformed their entire reason for existing.
From winning to mourning?
No, to preserving memory. Rebuilding wasn't about acquiring new assets to stabilize a brand. It became a visceral fight for honor. Every derby since 1949 isn't just about 3 points. It's about honoring a lost era. That makes their struggle infinitely deeper than just filling a trophy cabinet.
But doesn't that inherently position suffering as a substitute for success? I mean, if you're a neutral fan watching the derby today, you might wonder why the two fan bases feel so fundamentally different.
Because they are completely different.
Right. Think of Juventus fans globally. They operate almost like widespread shareholders in a blue-chip stock. They're a massive, heterogeneous group united by a completely rational expectation of continuous victory. It's a modern, highly effective model of sporting allegiance based on shared excellence.
It is effective for generating revenue, sure, absolutely. But a blue-chip stock can be sold the moment it underperforms. It's entirely transactional.
I wouldn't call the entire Juventus fan base transactional.
Well, compared to Torino's intensely devoted local fan base, it kind of is. For Torino, loyalty is a literal identity test. Because they aren't guaranteed a return on their emotional investment, their loyalty has to be forged in shared suffering, rather than shared glory.
Which is a much heavier burden.
But it's what keeps a club tethered to the reality of its city, rather than just, floating out there in the global market.
So we're essentially weighing two completely irreconcilable approaches to the sport. On one hand, you have the Juventus model championing the efficiency of institutional power, global reach, and this uncompromising pursuit of victory.
Right.
And on the other, the Torino ethos stands for the honor of resistance, profound local loyalty, and the preservation of a community's memory. Yet as much as they clash, they really desperately need each other to define Turin's complete narrative. The friction between that global powerhouse and the local soul is exactly what makes the Derby della Mole such a compelling study of modern sports.
Yeah, you really can't fully understand the machine without understanding the resistance against it.
Well said. We'll leave it to you, the listener, to decide which philosophy truly captures the essence of football.